Hi everybody, welcome back to Triple G Comics, and today we are talking Masters of the Universe once again, and I'm joined by my good pal, Luke. How are you, Luke?
I'm very good. Always excited to talk about Masters of the Universe.
So let's just crack straight on. Show us what you've got.
Let me first say, anyone who hasn't watched the previous video, go back and give that a watch because Peter picked some great villains, and obviously I don't want to step on your toes and pick the same ones.
Yeah.
So, I've gone for some different characters, and this is kind of a mix between just villains that I've come to love and villains that I just flat out loved the toys when I was younger. So there's a nostalgia feel to it, or there's a more in-depth characterization. So I'm going to start off with one of the more in-depth characterizations, which is Triclops.
Oh, I love Triclops.
So I wasn't a fan of Triclops before. I just saw him as a kind of nothing character, just one of the henchmen of Skeletor and everything else. But over the years, diving deeper into his mythology, diving deeper into who he is, what a great character. Yeah, absolutely superb. So for those of you who don't know, Triclops is a character who first appeared in the mini comics, where he was someone who was like on par with He-Man. His strength and everything was all level to He-Man, and that's why Skeletor wanted to use him. And he wasn't necessarily a villain at that point. He was kind of his own character, his own hero, his own anti-hero, whatever it is that you would like to call him. So yeah, he has 3 different eyes, which all had different abilities over the years. You know, some of them say that he can have an X-ray vision, or that he can see at night, you know, with night vision, etc. But over the years, they've kind of been quite loose with what these different eyes can do. The overall design of the character, I think, is absolutely superb. He was one of the first to ever be created by Mattel for the toy line. And yeah, this is actually the Masterverse character. So this is from the new series. And he also comes all decked out in the whole like motherboard robes and everything else.
Yeah, I wasn't so keen on the motherboard stuff. I prefer the classic looks of the characters. And
Oh,
those figures are
absolutely.
lovely.
But this is the beauty of these figures, is that they gave you both options. So he came with an additional head and clothing, which I actually put on a secondary He-Man body, so I can have both figures at the same time. And it worked out really nicely. So yeah, Triclops is my first pick.
So my first pick, and you'll have seen on the previous video, my picks tend to go for characters that that stood out to us more as a figure. And I've got a bit of a rule, Luke. I don't know how you pick up your figures, but my rule is with Masters of the Universe figures now, I only buy them if I go to toy fairs and things like that. So I don't buy off eBay or anything like that. The difficulty with that is that it means that you don't always get all the accessories and the bits and bobs that go with them. And this is exactly the case with this guy. So unfortunately, he's missing his club, and he's missing this is one that had quite a chunky kind of vest, like an armor on him. Do you recognise him?
I do. So it's a Mechaneck.
Look at that. Look at his little neck. See, these are the kind of figures I like. That as a kid, it was just like, that blew my mind. Do you know what I mean? It was like... So yeah, so Mechaneck, one of the original Masters characters, he did appear, obviously, like a lot of the characters did. First appearance came in mini-comics. And again, for those of you that don't know the background, a lot of these mini-comics came out with the toys, but a lot of them also came out after the cartoon finished airing. So you might not get a lot of characters who actually didn't appear in the cartoon. That's not the case for Mechaneck. He did appear in the cartoon on a number of episodes. Bizarre backstory. So basically, this guy's neck was damaged in a weather storm or something like that. So good old Duncan, man-at-arms, who Luke talked about in the last video we did, gave him a mechanical neck. There's a whole backstory to him where his son gets kidnapped and things like that, but that kind of disappeared over time. They didn't really delve into that too much. And again, the figure, just great. And in the future cartoons and the comic books in particular, he's like a spy master, and his goggles can zoom in and things. He is very much Inspector Gadget, I think. But yeah, Mechaneck.
Absolutely great character. And yeah, like you say, being able to go out and find these toys in the wild, that's a big part for me. If it's not the new stuff, like obviously like this Masterverse stuff, I pick up new from the shop, but anything else, anything retro or vintage, finding it in the wild is the best way. Yeah. So hopefully you'll be able to find those missing pieces.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll be on the hunt for them.
My next character is quite a nice little segue, because as we know, they tend to share a lot of parts with these action figures.
Yeah.
So you had Mechaneck, and for those of you in the know, this is Stinkor.
Yeah, I love Stinkor.
And Stinkor actually wears Mechaneck's armor.
Paint that red and give it to me, because that's what I need.
So yeah, like I say, they used to swap parts and things. And again, the old version of this actually had the feature, the toyetic smell You know, it was the action feature for this toy. I never had this toy from the vintage line, and I still don't. I would love to pick one up. I just love his character design. You know, he's kind of like this humanoid skunk-like creature. In the 2000 X series, we actually see a lot of his backstory, where he originated as like almost like a little Ewok-like creature. He was much smaller, and this is actually a mutation. Like he stumbled into actually Triclops' laboratory and accidentally turned himself into Stinkor. But again, just a fabulous character, very underused in the latest He-Man version. You know, we only see him in that first or second episode, and it's very brief. But I'd love to see more of him. I think he's a great character.
He's a brilliant character. I did have that original toy back in the day, and the smell was quite interesting. My next character is a bit of a weird one. So he never appeared in the cartoon, but this is this guy. This is Extendor, the Tower of Power. Have you ever seen this one?
So, is this the one where he extends from the waist?
Luke, not just the waist.
Not just the waist.
Look at this, man. Look at this. His legs extend. His hands extend. Oh, that one doesn't. That one doesn't. Oh, like I'd say, second hand bought these at a toy fair, so he's got a weird green hand going on there. His waist extends and his head extends. Look at that.
Because Mechaneck wasn't enough, right?
No, Mechaneck wasn't enough. No. So this is Extender, and when he extends fully, he becomes invincible. So you can't beat him. So this guy was a friend of Prince Adam. He's linked very much to. Do you remember Dragster? Yeah.
Yeah.
Very much linked to him. Captured by Hordak and experimented on and given all of these kind of cybernetic powers. This was very much when Masters was going slightly away from fantasy and more into technology, and sent to fight He-Man. But then he breaks free and he becomes one of the Masters. But just a great toy. Loads of fun playing with that one as a kid. I will be on the lookout for another version of this, because like I say, this one has got a great gold hand, but for some reason, I presume that's been stood in a window or something, and his colour has died off a little bit. But yeah, lovely figure. So that's Extendor.
I love it. So I never owned that toy when I was a kid, but I always knew about it. I always knew that there was like these action features, these figures with this great stuff, and I always wanted them. So my next and final character is probably my favorite of all the creature designs from the Masters of the Universe series, right? I absolutely love this guy, and I know you've got a 1/6 version, and I'm very jealous. I really want it, but that is Merman.
Oh, look at that. Lush.
Called Merman because they couldn't call him Seaman for obvious reasons. But yeah, I absolutely love this guy. And again, going back to what I was saying about the use of parts, he is just a straight up repaint. I'm not sure which one came first, but him and Stinkor back in the day, same figure. Yeah. Exactly the same thing, just painted differently.
So Merman came first because he was one of the original kind of lineup of Skeletor's goons, wasn't he?
Yeah. So this is actually the one from Revelations, where he came with the battle damaged eye, which I absolutely loved that look. However, he didn't have all the armor and everything. But fortunately, I had the armor because I had previously bought an accessory set from the Masters of the Universe Classics back in the day. Yeah. And so I actually had all this armor. So the minute they released him, I was like, that's great. I can buy him, get the armor put on, and he'll look exactly how I want him to be. And that means I've got his battle damaged eye and everything else. So yeah, I'm really happy with this one.
Yeah, one of my favorite characters. I absolutely love that character, and like you say, I've got him in 1/6 scale size, and it's a stunning figure. Absolutely
definitely a character to rival that of Skeletor and Hordak. I mean, he's master of the sea. At the end of the day, I never really understood why he was one of the cronies to Skeletor and not a main villain himself. He has kind of like that whole King Hiss vibe as well, where he can be his own separate thing.
Yeah. Very cool. I like that one. Right. My last figure is probably my favourite hero, and I suspect this will be one of your favourites as well, Luke. And it's a character who has appeared in the comics, he's appeared in the cartoons, and he's been a prominent player in the Kevin Smith universe, and that is Roboto. Just look, again, gimmicky figure. Clear chest, you can see his workings and all the rest of it. Came with multiple hands. I think I've only got the axe hand. I don't think I've got the others. But yeah, just love him. And when you move him, his little mouth moves and all that kind of stuff. Stunning little character. Obviously in the original, designed by Man-at-Arms. And then in the later kind of shows, he was redesigned initially to play chess with Man-at-Arms, but then developed into a kind of a warrior. I think Teela didn't want him joining the army to start with because he wasn't really a warrior robot. And then in the Kevin Smith universe, he had a real prominent place where he reforged the Swords of Power and sadly passed away, but kind of gave He-Man that hero's story, didn't he? That he was going to return to Eternia and not let any more of his friends die. So yeah, just again, great character design. And I love the fact it's a very typical sci-fi story, isn't it? Your mechanical man who wants a heart kind of thing, your tin man who wants a heart. And I think in the Kevin Smith version, at the end, he realizes he's scared of dying, so that he's surpassed his programming, and he's actually started to feel.
So I loved that figure as a kid. I thought it was absolutely superb. And yeah, the Kevin Smith show just absolutely knocked it out of the park with his development. It's a great show, though. I have to admit, you know, regardless of what other people say, I think they've done these characters really well. And I'm really looking forward to seeing more in the future. Fingers crossed we get it.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And speaking of more in the future, let one know in the comments if you want to see me and Luke talking more about He-Man characters, because I dare say, Luke, we could flesh out a few more of these and talk about more of our beloved characters, or maybe even do a worst characters. That might be an interesting one to do. So let one know in the comments if you're interested in seeing that. Okie dokie. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us, Luke. Always a pleasure.
Always.
And
I'll be back.
please remember, ladies and gentlemen, any money raised on this channel, whether it's through ad revenue or super chats and all that kind of stuff, goes towards mental health charities. That's your whack. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll catch you next time. Take care.